Welcome back to the Austin Public Library podcast. We are joined by Andy Macintyre. We're laughing because we did this once and it wasn't recording. So here's take two. That's all right. Thank you once again for being here.
Thank you again for having me.
You came to Austin as a teenager from the Chicago area.
Yeah.
So I really like, again, something you said a minute ago that I didn't quite catch, but I'm going to bring it back up.
Sure. Yeah.
You said that one of your first impressions coming to Austin was, oh, that's a place of cowboys. And you get here, and there are cowboys, but they like Nirvana. I love that.
Exactly.
And so...
Man, I do love that Kurt Cobain.
Yeah, he's
like,
all right. Yeah.
I do too. Actually, I probably said it like, I do too, isn't that cool? You know, some crazy northern accent that I wasn't even aware of that I had.
That's awesome. And we were listening to your music before you got here, really enjoying it.
And
thank
you.
It's interesting that you mentioned Nirvana because I hear a little bit of grunge come out in some of your things.
Yeah, you know, the golden question, or the most difficult question for any musician or artist to really ever answer is like, so what kind of music do you play? You know, it's...
So my question related to that then is, what's the earliest music group, artist, album you remember hearing and feeling like, yeah, like I want to be, like, I love this. I want to be a part of this.
Man. Can I give you three?
Yes.
If that's cool. Yeah. Definitely. Well, okay. I think it was watching Hendrix live at Monterey Pop was pretty awesome. And I think that was a really good example of like what it could be visually without being Janet Jackson, right? And then
did you have a VHS of that, or how were you watching
that?
It
was that's kind of back in the day then. So that was the 90s. That was so long ago. And it was Monterey Pop, Hendrix, and I think I'm a huge fan of Prince. Although the movie Purple Rain really, I think, distorted maybe musically what he was about. It wasn't always just like hopping on some like crazy motorcycle and running through the hills of Minneapolis. and then, you know, I think it's probably just a lot of the 60s and 70s artists. I mean, not just kind of clump them into one area. And four, I lied. And a lot of the grunge people. Yeah, totally. Just kind of how it goes. Sorry.
What do you relate to in guys like Prince and Jimi Hendrix? I mean, you mentioned the performance element.
Mm-hmm. I take away the lack of boundaries, the lack of fear, the lack of iPhones when they created their music. Talk about a distraction. Good God. I love Steve Jobs, but I hate him. I think the other thing too is just, and I think Hendrix and Prince probably both said it in interviews. It's very important to just be you, write you. You know, I think David Bowie and probably Janis Joplin both said never play to the gallery, meaning don't try and write with a preconceived notion. I'm sure, I mean, which is totally different from being inspired by something. You know, you see a speaker, you hear a bird tweeting, you see a phone, and it isn't like I'm thinking, I'm going to write about that. It's I'm going to feel about that. And that's when writing comes in. And I think those two artists in particular were not afraid of their emotions. And that, I think, is... And those were pop artists back in the day, and that is absolutely missing from the major label pop artist stuff now. Where's that human thing?
Yeah, totally agree. You've been in this...
I hope I'm not being too heavy about this. I'm worried that it's like...
It's all good.
Okay, all right. Yeah. There's 50 people in this room. No, I'm kidding.
You've been in this Austin music scene, like we mentioned, since you were a teen. And from an outside perspective, it's interesting to me to see that it's almost like this love-hate adversarial relationship that the city has with its musicians, with its music scene, where we promote the music. We want to be known for this, but at the same time, it feels like they're trying to control. Right. And so Yeah, I don't have
I can't necessarily speak to that exactly because I think a lot of us aren't entirely sure what's happening, and we really don't know what's going to happen next. And the American culture is like, it doesn't know what it wants right now. And it's being told one thing over here and being told it's bad over there. And this side over here is saying, well, this is evil too. And then you have you have the rest of us. And I'm sorry, but I think a lot of it does play into that. I think also people are kind of afraid to go out. There's so many rules and so many regulations, and the powers that be are having less and less of those exact regulations. And I think, unfortunately, that part does trickle down into the everyday person.
And even the music scene, I would say. Because you said you kind of came over on like almost like the original IT wave that came into Austin.
Right, yeah.
And so really you've caught the entire transformation that Austin's been going through recently. And you've seen how it may have affected the music scene. Would you say that the music scene in Austin today is still, as alive and as thriving as it was in the past?
It is. It's just in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
It is not as and it breaks my heart saying it like this. It's not quite as down home as it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's ultimately what it is. The cheese is still there. You just have to go and find it in different nooks and crannies.
Right.
So it the .com thing and the IT bubble, cheese bubble did burst, and it kind of took part of the music with it, but it is still there. You just have to go and like find us, not in the old places where you used to go and find us so easily.
Right.
That was a terribly worded sentence, but no, it is true.
Yeah, you got your point across.
If you had the magic wand and you could either fast forward some process that is happening currently or add something to the music scene that Austin doesn't currently have, what would you want to see develop or occur here in Austin that could really help musicians?
That's an excellent question. I think I won't go too deep. Okay. The first thing is you being the people that are the movers and shakers of real estate and just call it what it is, big time money that's coming into here, be it good, bad, or indifferent. They have to let us help them so they can help us. They have to listen to us, period. And it has to be a give and take. There has to be a commonality there before we can really come up with a better, newer idea. It's all right there. It's like all hiding right underneath our noses. It's just both sides are just so, a lot of them are just very unwilling to even listen to like one sentence because it's, oh, that's just hippie stuff. I'm censoring myself. Or oh, that's just stuck up corporate stuff. It's like, well, it is and it isn't. I mean, not everyone's a musician in this town, not everyone understands that weird dynamic that's not quite a bartender hour. It's not quite a grave digger hour. It's the musician hour, So I think, and it does seem like things are moving in this direction where people are being pulled off of 6th Street, which is not all bad, it's not all good either, but there should be a full-on music district, and if people don't want it on 6th Street, there's nothing wrong with trying to save the last remaining clubs over there and just move them over to this new area. I think, and they have to be able to help us too. There definitely has to be give and take. I mean, we help generate $2 billion, according to whatever the number is. Every year, live music helps generate $2 billion, and that's not including South by. That's a big number.
Yeah, it sounds like what you're describing is a very human problem of the struggle to put yourself in the shoes of the other talents, to see the other perspective, and to listen and communicate. So,
and
it's an old problem,
a lot of this ridiculous finger pointing where it's just like, no, but that doesn't do anything. Sure. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of injustice going on, totally, but I don't know.
We have transitioned, it seems like music has transitioned back to this era of the money is on the road again, and it's touring.
Right.
It's not in the albums right now.
I mean, it really hasn't been for like 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, is that just the eternal nature of art? Is music, is constantly being able to shift and adjust, and those who can stay afloat and those who can't kind of fade back? I mean,
yeah, I would say that's totally fair. I think too that when I look at movies and I look at pop music, they really seem to be paralleling each other right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, come on. 3 reboots of Spider-Man in just over 1 decade? Yeah. That's insane. What is the point of that? Yeah. That's and sorry, fans of Spider-Man. That's just my point of view. But I see a problem there. Yeah. So people going out and looking for live music, I would parallel that to, shows like, for lack of a better example, shows like Breaking Bad and Netflix and Hulu and these new independent things, and a lot of the really talented actors and actresses and producers and directors, and the music in that is apparently there's really, really good money to be made there. So I think and I'm going to mispronounce his name. I think his name is it's spelled Kaleo. And he has this song called "We're Going Down" or something like that. Going down.
Yeah, he's an Austin guy, right?
Maybe.
I think so. Kaleo or Kaleo.
Yeah, but he's definitely not born in the U.S. though.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
But everything. The first time I heard that song, it wasn't on the radio. It wasn't like on my iPhone. It was from some TV show, and it was in some commercial, and everything's moved in such a way that it would, like just 10, 15 years ago, it was not cool to have placement like that, product placement. Now you absolutely have to. But the people that you're actually placing your stuff in, they're kind of like on your side. They're kind of in the same boat, I think. I mean,
how does that work? How do you find each other? Because I agree. I do see this as a dynamic now where people want their music in TV shows. They want it, on TV, other mediums.
I think it's you have to go and somehow get your stuff like put into the scene where Walter White is like down in the basement freaking out, and then on comes like a Macintyre song, and no one's ever heard it before, but they're like, and then suddenly they just happen to hear it on the radio and go, oh, that's that one scene in Breaking Bad, that's that one guy, and then because you can find anyone now by pressing a button that's not there, and you can go and find me, and then suddenly people, Macintyre is playing, Antones or the Parish, or he's playing in San Antonio or wherever. People that like that, but I think it's funny because it kind of tricks you into listening to the qualitative stuff again because you were so moved by what you were watching on the screen. Whereas if you go to Hulk Part 17 and Spider-Man, you're not watching that. You're watching the pixie dust actors, that's really not nice of me. I'm sorry. It's not nice. Or, Blade Runner 50 starring Jared Leto, and you go, what is Jared Leto doing in this movie?
You got a real hang up on buttons, man. Is there a dark button history
I know.
going on here?
Yeah, he's starting to name names. Edit.
You were talking about the emotional connection that having a track in a certain scene in a TV show or
right.
that can create for people, and thinking again of Prince and Jimi Hendrix,
right?
The performance side of that, the emotion that you were talking about. In some ways, it feels like the new kind of way to connect to the audience, or not the new way, but a new way to make that connection that those guys were doing back then.
Yeah, I think too that with Prince and Jimi Hendrix, they too, themselves, had a visual thing happening too, and that was back when you absolutely had to have a visual thing. I think that is Okay. I'll give you a really good example of the only issue with these bands that, and this includes myself, is when you go and you put it into True Detective or Breaking Bad or anything else like that, is some of those bands are super talented or acts, and you go and you see them and they don't move on stage. And they have a very funny, awkward stage presence. And I'm always kind of suspect about that because I go, well, was this put together in the studio then? I kind of think it might have been. I know who the Monkees were, that kind of thinking. And it's just something I think a lot of maybe this is my answer, the up and coming thing. A lot of the people who are starting out is you do have to have a show.
Yeah, I mean, this is a world where you can literally just upload a song and millions of people have access to it immediately.
Right. And rest in peace, SoundCloud. Apparently, what was that about? That was so weird.
I think Chance the Rapper saved. Yeah, he saved.
Really?
SoundCloud.
Okay.
One way or another. Yeah. I don't know what he did, but. Yeah. I don't know. I'm glad though. I like SoundCloud. You have a SoundCloud?
Yeah, you do. I actually have two of them. I have one for Macintyre and then one for my side project called Dark Toy. And actually, Dark Toy is specifically geared for, just as I brought up earlier, it's a bunch of ambient music, a bunch of soundtrack stuff, and been working with this really good mastering engineer up in Cedar Park. His name is Steve Burson.
Nice.
Total Sonic Media. There you go, Steve. And he just happens to be like kind of right in my neighborhood too.
Gotcha.
So it's perfect. I can just drive over there and we can crank some music, and he masters it.
Cool. And that's on SoundCloud.
Yeah.
It's a Dark Toy.
Yeah,
check that out.
It's totally different from Macintyre. It's just me, the computer, some preamps, and a synthesizer, this cool '80s drum machine, and then I just modify everything.
That's awesome, man. That is awesome. Yeah. So a synthesizer. So that's getting a little more into EDM, and really, I think this can swing in the other direction. When you were saying there has to be a show,
right? I
think with EDM. Really, they can almost overdo the show and almost take away from the music. That's
funny. I think the guy from Deadmau5, Joel. I have a lot of respect for him, but on Twitter, he's almost Trump-like in his in his acidic tone, and yet he's Canadian. So I'm like, okay. I think you need to hang out with Neil Young a little bit. You need to calm down. I think he's pointed out those same kind of things, and I actually really like EDM.
Well, a lot of awesome things have come out about music.
Yeah.
We also like to take some time to talk about the library. What role has that institution played in your life? The institution of the library, like.
Yeah. Well, my first memories of the library were up in Chicago, actually. And this plays into the vinyl thing. I used to go and check out vinyl. And so I owe that library a great debt of gratitude because I found out about the band The Police through that library. And I also found out about the band Kiss from that library. Jose Feliciano, I think. It's just they had this eclectic collection, which just like.
Yeah, and I would say that what you're expressing is part of the magic of the library, the value that it has to a community where, we can all pool our resources and collect these materials that we can all take a turn with and see, does this speak to me? Do I connect with this? And if it does or it doesn't, there is something really, I think, that's good and valuable for people to say, well, I take it back and return it, and someone else gets to experience that.
Right.
And there's something powerful about that.
Right. Yeah. So, I think albums and books. I mean, obviously, everyone knows that, but a library has books. Microfiche. Oh yeah, I loved Microfiche. That was a lot of fun.
I don't think kids know that these days.
It was
the joy of researching and
Yeah.
spinning through a paper on a film roll.
Right. Kids. It was basically Google before it was Google, and it was really loud, and it made this really annoying sound like, and you would slide through, and it goes ka-chunk, ka-chunk, like that.
And you had to like zoom in and adjust. It was like using the microscope at school. Like you couldn't just.
And it didn't matter how good a quality it was in. It still looked broken.
Yeah. Sounded broken too. Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, and let's see. So if someone wanted to go and see you live, what's the best way to kind of see your schedule?
Really, Macintyre.rocks, MACINTYRE.ROCKS. I spelled that right, didn't I? MACINTYRE. Yeah.
Cool.
And you can follow me up on Instagram, the IG. Facebook. It's nothing but politics right now. Isn't it funny that both Twitter and Facebook, you scroll through that and it's like 90% Agent Orange just the entire time. That's all it is. Yeah. It's like Jeff Sessions and just it's like this is not what this is supposed to be for.
It turned into a little political theater. But
it really did.
140 characters to. Yeah.
How can I insult the American intelligence today in just under 140 characters?
No, he can do it in 10, man.
Sorry, I had to say it.
Confifi.
Can you just say Confifi? Right. Ooh, beer.
All right.
Yeah, almost. So let me. Yeah.
All right, the beer is out, so we will sign off. Thank you, Andy, for coming through, spending the time to talk to us. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much for having me.
We'll talk to you next time.
All right.